Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This episode of Childcare Rockstar Radio is brought to you in part by Honest Buck Accounting. Is the financial side of your business taking you away from what you love about it? Honest Buck frees you up to get back to the business you love and grow it. Honest Buck Accounting is your full-service accounting partner exclusively for early childhood businesses. From payroll to forecasting, from budgeting to tax preparation, they offer a variety of services to meet your early childhood business as it grows. Their experienced team comes alongside your business to free you up and help you thrive. And to show their support of early childhood businesses, they are awarding a deserving center or preschool a $1,000 scholarship. Just visit honestbuck.com/Kris Murray. That's honestbuck, BUCK.com/Kris Murray to register to win and learn more. So we are here on episode 79, everybody, and I hope that you are having a good summer. I hope it's been as good as it can be in this crazy, crazy time of a global pandemic. By the time that this airs, I'm hoping that we will have seen a reduction in cases and we are making progress on a vaccine. So fingers crossed that the world will continue to heal and move forward and try to get out of this thing. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some normalcy, and I know we all are. I want to shout out to you because I know that if you are in this field, you have been challenged like you've never dreamed of. And the amount of process change, safety and health expense, and increase of focus and detailed elements of everything that people are doing around PPE and processes and procedures, and the fear in parents' minds and the fear of, what's going on with staff and the emotions have been such a roller coaster ride. It's been so difficult. And I hope that this podcast, it's my hope, my dear hope, that this podcast has brought you some relief with some strategies and just knowing that we're all in it together, guys. And we're in a community of like-minded, success-oriented, early learning professionals. And I really, really hope that you're just doing okay. And I hope I'm doing a virtual mental health check for you right now. So if there's anything that you would like to tell me or reach out and suggest to me for future topics, future speakers, or just give me your feedback, I would love to hear it. You can put reviews in the podcast platforms. So certainly Apple Podcasts and Google Play have places for you to review or provide feedback on this podcast, or you can reach out to me directly. I'd love to hear from you at Kris with a K, Kris at childcaresuccess.com. So today's podcast features one of our Empire members. She's the owner of 2 locations in 2 different states. And they're very different programs from one another. One is an early Head Start and regular Head Start program in Kansas, more of a rural location. And one is in a suburb, an affluent suburb of Denver. So 2 very different programs, and she's running them under one brand. And you're going to learn all about Pamela's journey. She's an industry veteran who has been through lots of different types of programs and leadership and management in an early learning environment, and has been running her own programs now for, I think about a decade, maybe slightly less than that. But she's been in our academy mastermind group and coaching group for a couple of years, and it's just been a joy to work with her and her husband, Carl. We talk about a lot of tactical and also strategic things in this podcast. We talk about the value of a coach and what it brings you to be in a mentoring and peer group. And so I want you to listen to that with open ears, because even if if you're using a coach currently and it's not myself, or you are thinking about getting some coaching for your business, doesn't have to be us, but we believe in it wholeheartedly. And so I would just counsel you to listen to that with especially open ears, because it's the thing that I've personally done to get me from nothing in this business about 11 years ago to approaching a $4 million business. And if it wasn't for coaches and mastermind groups, absolutely never would have come this far. Absolutely, without a doubt, the number one thing I've done is be in mastermind and coaching groups throughout my entire entrepreneurial journey. So that's the best practice. And I just want you to take that to heart. So you don't have to go through it alone. And Pamela talks about that coaching has allowed her to be proactive at the onset of this pandemic and stay ahead of it, as well as be a leader throughout the journey. And even her local health department was like, wow, these checklists and these tools and these things that you're using are amazing. Can we share them with the rest of the practitioners in our county? And she was like, sure. But those are things that she got from us, from the academy and from her fellow tribe members. So it's really, really important. It's going to help you feel supported, feel like you're in a group that gets you, that walks your walk every day. And there is something priceless about having that, especially during this very, very difficult season. So we talk about that. We talk about price increases and her reluctance to raise her rates over the last few years, and only had done it a handful of times, and only had done it usually every 2 or 3 or 4 years. And she has really had a mindset shift and a practitioner shift around, strategic shift, I should say, around actually the ability and the result that you get from raising your price obviously is more money, but it's like there's a confidence from it that that you are delivering a top-notch service, and being able to be confident about approaching it and approaching your business like running a business. So that is an amazing conversation that we have on this podcast. And we talk about leadership and management. We talk about delegation to a leadership team and all the other little tweaks and tricks that she has implemented over the last couple of years that have really helped her free herself up from her business and grow her own relationships and feed back into her team with renewed energy. So if you're looking for some ideas to get out of overwhelm and be operating focused on the $100 tasks instead of the $10 tasks in your business, you're going to love this episode. So it's episode 79 with Pamela Piekarski. Let's just go dig right in. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, Pamela Piekarski. How are you?
Really good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thanks so much for joining me today here at Child Care Rockstar Radio. Where are you right now?
I am in Overland Park, Kansas, sitting on my front porch.
Lovely.
At my house.
And how's the weather in Kansas?
It's beautiful. There's a light breeze, amazing blue skies. It's a little on the warm side, but sitting in the shade with the breeze, it's okay.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your business. And I know that you're operating in 2 different states. So tell us more about your program, the name of it, and where your locations are based.
So I do have 2 locations. One is in Erie, Colorado. And I've had that one since 2007. It is licensed for 76 children. It is an upper socioeconomic community. Mean income has come down, but it's about 115,000. And I have an amazing administrative staff there, that my director and business manager that have been with me for almost 7 years, and could not do what I do with my second center without them being in place. The second center is something that just kind of came along back in 2014. Opened June 1, and it is a early Head Start center, and then last year we became a Head Start partner. So we have 4 classrooms, licensed for 50. Because of Head Start ratios being lower than state, we average about 40, and we have 2 classrooms that are under 3 and 2 classrooms that are over 3.
Great. And
again, great core team. I've got like 3 core staff that have been with me. Right now I am the operating director, and I'm looking for that right person to come in and, take that position over. So
awesome. So if you're listening to this podcast and you live near Overland Park, Kansas, go visit Pamela and apply for a job.
And Kansas Center is actually in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay, very good.
Which is a different county, Wyandotte County, but it's about 10 minutes from here. So yes, come on down and definitely apply. It's an amazing opportunity working for a Head Start program as a Head Start partner.
I bet it is.
The resources are phenomenal. On-site coaching, curriculum coaching, mental health coaching, paid education benefits, like they'll pay for you to get a degree in early childhood. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So
that's fantastic. And the name of your school is?
Thank you. The name of my schools are Exploring Minds Academy. Exploring
Minds Academy. Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How long have you been working in the early childhood field, and why did you get into this wonderful and zany world of childcare?
I have been in early care and education since 1978. I started as a kindergarten teacher in Kansas City, Kansas, at a low-income, at-risk school. I'm bilingual. So my first school was, they utilized my bilingual resources. And I was teaching and realized, and now remember, it's 78, we weren't getting them young enough. I mean, they literally were coming off the street into my classrooms, never having seen a Lego,
right,
a crayon, a pair of scissors. I'll never forget my first lesson and that was back in the day when there was 30 plus in the morning session and 30 plus in the afternoon session. And I was the only teacher in the classroom. And I'll never forget the first time I decided I was going to teach them how to cut with scissors, right? So I handed everybody a piece of paper and I handed everybody a pair of scissors. And oh my goodness, it didn't take me but minutes to realize that was not a good plan, that we needed to do that differently. So yeah, I learned a lot. They taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And then I had my own 3 children. My girls are now, they were born in the late 70s and mid 80s. And so they're up there, moms of their own. And they, I couldn't find quality care for them. All I could find was at-home care, and it was so substandard that in 1985, I found a book that said if you can write a lesson plan, you can write a business plan. So I wrote my first business plan, and that was in 84, and was given permission by the district to break contract. And March 1985, I opened my first child care center with an SBA loan. So it's just been a delightful road ever since then. I opened a second one in 87. And then we had the savings and loans crash in 90. Most people that don't know what that was, but we had savings and loans back in the day, and they were not FDIC insured. So when they all failed, everybody lost, whether they had $5 or $5 million, it was all gone. So really changed the economic world. And then we moved out to Colorado. in 92. And I left the industry for a while. Mm-hmm. And in 97, I went to work for an amazing company called Seven Oaks Academy, run by 4 men. And I actually became a partner. And we in one of the centers, and they were just very Colorado homegrown, went from Fort Collins to Westminster, and the men were just, I took a lot of my values from them. Very business savvy, very values based, very people oriented, very relational. So yeah, that's how I got into this. Had great people, great mentors, and we sold them all in 2004 to a national company. And I thought, again, I was going to leave for a while. So I ended back up in the classroom and taught a bilingual first grade class where I spoke 3/4 of the day in Spanish and only taught math and English. And again, realized the public school system wasn't where I belonged. I needed them younger. So that's when Soaring Minds Academy came into my lap, literally. Got a phone call and said, hey, you have a center in your town that needs you. And that's been the history from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you have an unusual living arrangement with your hubby. Because you're based in Kansas and he's still based in Colorado. So talk a little bit about that, whatever you'd like to share about your personal life.
So Carl and I are second marriage. I'm his third, my second. And we are just really 2 strong, amazingly strong people. I don't think I could have done it without that component. We've been married 15 years, and he works for the government, so he has a full-time job in Colorado. And when the Kansas Center showed up as an opportunity, the original deal was my oldest daughters were going to run it. And then that changed, and in 15, so I moved out here thinking, oh, well, I can live part-time here and part-time there. A Head Start Center is very different than managing a general standalone state licensed only center. It's just a lot more complex, and it's one of the things I love about it. And so, he lives in Colorado. We have a beautiful 5-acre ranch there. It sits in unincorporated part of Colorado. You get to see the beautiful view of the mountains. And I live here. Part of the reason is because of the child care center, but I also have 11 grandchildren that live here. So, and my oldest one is 23. So I give him 5 years, and hopefully, I get to be Gigi. For now, I'm Mima. So, and then my son lives up in Weld County, up in Greeley area. He's in the Air Force, and he and his wife are expecting their first in October. So I'll have an even dozen. I'm so excited about that.
That's awesome. It's funny that you said Gigi, because that's what we call our Gigis in my family. So I had a Gigi, and then when my grandmother became Gigi to my brother's kids, she was the next Gigi. So that's what we actually called our Gigis. So anyways, I don't know if you do that or not, but.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, yeah. For me, Gigi, like I call my grandchildren my G babies.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That's kind of where I got that from.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we are also very blessed to have you in the Child Care Success Academy Empire level. And you've been working with me as a client in the coaching program and the mentorship program in the Child Care Success Academy for a couple years. And it's been great. And we'll talk a little bit about what you gain from mentorship and coaching, and not just necessarily talking about our program, but I know you're in also another program related to real estate. And I just think talking a little bit with the listeners about what you get out of coaching and mentorship. And I can talk about it as well, just because I've been using coaches and mentors since the very beginning of my business. And I think that that's an important thing to talk about. But before we go there, I want to talk to you about your business and a little bit about managing and leading your business. You've been in this industry for such a long time. You're a seasoned veteran. You have 2 programs in 2 different states. And with what has just happened to us in this crazy world with the pandemic and the crisis that we just came through, I wanted to find out what were some insights that you had that you can share about this experience as a business owner. So, we choose to try to see the positive from this crisis and this pandemic. And while there's been a lot of things in our world that have not been very positive, maybe you've seen some ahas, you've gained some insights, you've been able to reflect, you've gained some perspective. One of our recent podcast guests talked about his desire to take a moment just to relax and let his life kind of chill and kind of like put the pause button on. And so, have you had any of those kinds of insights, like thinking about your life now versus maybe when you started out this year or earlier 5 years ago, like upon post-pandemic reflection, even though we're kind of still in the middle of our pandemic, any insights there, Pamela, that you can share?
What I've learned, I think, is the most, how do I put this? The most that has stopped me in my tracks and caused me to reframe is the value of a coach. Well, I have been through a lot of different things. I mean, a lot of different events in our country. And the value of having a coach, the value of having a you in their life, you are the coach is the one that's out there doing all the resource searching that allows us as business owners to step it up in our business. I couldn't have run my businesses and done all the research.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And I could see the difference, like in the 2 different, being in 2 states, it's really interesting to see the differences between the 2 states, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Colorado, I'm in Boulder County. So Colorado, Boulder County, those coaches were really good. And they don't consider themselves as coaches. They were the public health resource people and the early childhood council, resource people. And yet what they're doing is they're bringing information to us that allows us then to stand on that and bring up our business. So for me, if anything, it just showed me how important it is to have a coach. The second thing that it did was it caused me to stop. The pandemic made me stop.
Mm-hmm. Made
me stop being so busy. Even though I was busy. Both my centers stayed open for the whole time. And all my staff were employed, pretty much. And people worked the hours they needed for their budgets. So for me, and I was on Zoom meetings sometimes from 8 to 8 between the 2 states, 5 days a week. I mean, it was intense there in the depth of it. But yet, I feel like I could still pause. I could Selah and take care of me in a way that I didn't know how to do before. So having to stay home and I live by myself. Well, me and my 3 4-legged children. I have 2 English bulldogs and a Cocker Spaniel. And so, but there's no other adults there. So if I talk to anybody, it's by phone. Yeah. And all of my children were busy coping with how to take care of their families during the pandemic. So it wasn't, you just didn't get out and go do things because you couldn't.
Right.
So that was the number one thing out of the pandemic for me was make sure you have a coach and a good coach that's knowledgeable in your field. And if that's a little commercial, sign up for Kris Murray's Child Success Academy. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Because I don't know how I would have, would I've done it? Yeah. Would I've done it at the quality level that I did it? I'm a visionary. So for me, all I needed, in the Myers-Briggs, I'm the visionary person. Mm-hmm. And all I needed was the resources and the research that you gave me. And then I was bringing that. And then so you're up here at this level, and then Boulder County is like down here at this level. And in Kansas, they were still trying to, they were a whole week to 2 weeks behind where Colorado was in just making the announcement. And I'd already gone through lockdown and implemented procedures and shut the center for a day and done a deep clean. And I'd already done all that stuff in Kansas the week after I did it in Colorado. So, and then make sure you take time to pause.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for saying that, because with regard to the coach, that means a lot to me. And, whether you guys who are listening choose to work with us or, another business coach in the field or outside of the field, it's all good. But I think what a coach brings, and I've used one, Pamela, my whole business career since I started this business a decade ago, because they bring the ability to also see outside of the blinders, the blind spots, what's under your nose, you really can't see it at all, even if you put your head down. And so a good coach will bring that. And I also remember just giving you some shortcuts, because I'm based in Colorado, you're half-time based, and one of your businesses is based in Colorado. So we had a conversation about the PPP, and right at that time when we were having angst where the big banks didn't seem to be responding. And I was like, well, I got a beat on a little bank that's going to help you. And you immediately jumped on it, and you got your PPP through them.
I got my PPP through her. Yeah.
That's awesome. So shout out to UMB Bank for that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about your leadership and management style. With having 2 very, very different programs, I think you're probably the only podcast guest that's had a early Head Start program in one state, and then a high-end affluent program in another state. So, that's an interesting model, and you get some economy of scale, and some, you're able to manage both programs, but really you rely on your leadership teams in each center, and building your leadership team in Kansas because you're physically there, but really relying on Colorado because you're not physically there as much. So talk a little bit about your leadership and your management. How have you evolved that over the last decade, and what are some of your go-to things that you do to try to keep people, following your lead and engaged? What's your meeting pulse? Or just speak a little bit to maybe some of the, tactics and strategies you use.
My leadership style has evolved. I will say that coming out of the classroom, the reason I came out of the classroom is because I knew that by teaching teachers, I could impact more children. Yet, I didn't have any training in working with adults. So that I've got lots of great I've had a lot of great teachers in my life that have taught me how to be a better leader just by their interactions. Mm-hmm. And then I've realized that leadership leadership is cultural. So I started my PhD in educational leadership. And one of the books I really like is The Fifth Dimension by Peter Sankey. And it talks about the how leadership is something that unfolds. It doesn't, it's some people are natural born leaders, but still knowing how to lead inside of the culture. Leadership is inside of the culture. And yes, the culture is created, as you've taught us, through lots of different work. It's done through your philosophy and your mission statement, and your core knowledge, your core values. So in Colorado, that center is culturally different, again, because of where it's located. And those people there, the majority of them are degreed at some level or another. And then, and the standards in Colorado are much higher, like minimum 3 years experience with 2 college classes, et cetera. Here in Kansas, all you need is 6 months experience in a classroom and you can be in charge of one. So you have to really find and understand the heart of the people and who they are and where they're coming from and why they're there. And one of the speakers this weekend talked about, at your session, talked about your occupation. I love that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 65 and this is my occupation. It is still what puts my feet on the floor in the morning, no matter how tired I am or what's rattling around in my head. It's what's in my heart. It's my occupation to serve children and their families and the teachers so that everybody has the opportunity to experience a love of learning and joy in life. Mm-hmm. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you mentioned the conference. So we just had our 3-day virtual academy meeting where we brought in 4 different awesome speakers. And one of them, perhaps the most beloved, Ron Clark was, of course, blew us away and beloved, but this was your guys' first taste of Dr. Nefertiti Pointer. And Dr. Pointer gave us that amazing phrase, which is occupation. And we just love her so much. She brought the house down with her way, her magic. And so shout out to Dr. Pointer and Nefertiti. You rocked our worlds. And I love that you brought that up, Pamela, about occupation. So for those of you listening, that might be a writer downer for you. And you can take that and flow it into your programs and into your life as you see fit. But that speaks to another one of your wins that you did this year, Pamela, is a big fear that a lot of people have listening to this podcast. And I know this because when I first work with people, they say, well, I haven't raised my rates in 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I'm nervous to do so because I'm nervous that families are going to leave me, or they're going to, during this season of COVID, they're going to think that if I raise my rates that I'm trying to, gouge them in some way. But yet one of your wins this year was that you raised your tuition rates and you did not lose, I think, one single family. So talk about that myth, that fear in our head versus the reality of why it's important to consistently raise rates. So just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I can tell you, Kris, before I became a part of your academy, I hadn't raised my rates in probably, 3 or 4 years. And again, with that same fear that, what kind of hardship might it cause on people, all of that kind of stuff. Well, then Colorado did this thing where they decided they were going to increase minimum wage. And when I looked at how much they were increasing minimum wage, it was literally 9.6%. And they did that 3 years in a row. Mm. And for me, it was just this natural evolution. Well, if minimum wage is going up 9.6%, well, then my tuition's got to go up 10%. So it's gone up 10% the last 3 years, each year.
Wow.
And Now, I will tell you, I was also one of those centers that had really low tuition compared to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm in Erie, and back then the mean income was $135K a year. And I'm, I have it at the same income level, that tuition level that I have my Kansas City, Kansas center, which is in a low income, impoverished community.
Right.
So that wasn't, I have room. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But that still doesn't stop the conversation called everything is going up. And my teachers deserve to be paid what they deserve to be paid as professionals.
Yes.
I have this saying in my house: we don't care for the day. We don't do daycare. The day cares for itself. And all my teachers are teachers, and I refer to them everywhere as teachers. I mean, they're not, because they're teaching from the second the child walks in the door until the second the child walks out of the door.
Yep.
Or it's teaching them how to put on a coat or their shoes or play with friends or their ABCs. They're teaching. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I actually raised it 10% in the midst of COVID, and it will be effective August 1. Now, what I did with that was, when COVID first hit, I put out 3 options to my families. And for the families that wish to stay with me and keep their spot, I guaranteed them this year's tuition for another year.
You grandfathered them in.
I grandfathered them, and they pay me every week. And I still have 1 or 2 families, maybe more, I don't know, but that do that. And then another rate level was a 5. They would only get a 5. They could, I don't remember, I didn't write it down. They got a 5% increase. Mm-hmm. And then the new families that are coming in at the 10% rate increase. So that's how I was able to be sensitive to what havoc COVID is causing on our households.
So you obviously have a really good relationship with your teachers and your leadership team, and I would assume the families and the children with which you work. What kind of communication do you regularly do with them? I mean, do you guys just kind of do the typical daily communication components? Do you reach out to them? Do you do email? Do you text? I mean, how do you keep those loyalty fences strong with all of your stakeholders?
That's a work in progress, I will admit. In Colorado, what we did was we put together weekly class that, we had show and share, and we did that once a week.
So like Zooms or?
Yeah, it was a Zoom meeting. Uh-huh. Yeah. We use a program called Hi Mama. And we are in the process of switching over to Core Advantage because I utilize that program out here as a Head Start Center. Mm-hmm. And it just has more features.
Interesting. I've never heard of Core Advantage, so that's something cool I'll check out. Yeah,
it's got some really cool stuff. Like one of the things it has is that we can develop our own newsletter inside of Core Advantage, and that goes out. They give us the template and everything. And I did share why I was switching with Hi Mama. So
sure.
He said the same thing. Hi Mama, parents love Hi Mama. They loved those daily communications, those anecdotal notes, the photographs. And here in Kansas, we're starting, we used Core Advantage internally. And then this year we will be blasting it out and doing it as a communication to parents as well.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, we've featured Ron from Hi Mama on this podcast quite a bit because he's the host of the preschool podcast. So I'll give Ron a shout out. And we're also big Bright Wheel fans because we know that parents love Bright Wheel. And then we also love Life Cubby. So those are kind of the 3 that we usually recommend. But there's a lot of different parent communication apps and software components out there. And everybody has the one that they love best. So let's talk about looking back. You've had such a seasoned career. Do you have anything that you can really point to that you would have done differently if you had to do it all over again? Anything that you could wish that you had a redo on?
I was really glad that you sent me that question ahead of time, because I'm really not a redo person.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I'm only able to do today because of what I learned from yesterday. And so when I looked at that, I can be honest with you and say, no, my life has been filled with, steps along the way that were uncomfortable, some failures, and successes.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my life is about service. And I say this even to my parents and my teachers. I say it in my interviews. They're not my sinners, they're His, as in God. And I'm here to serve. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm here to do. Mm. We don't proselytize. We don't have any curriculum around church. That's the parents' responsibility. It's what's had me make it through some tearful nights. Mm-hmm. And it's what's had me celebrate the joys. So
yeah, well, you seem like you've come through this with grace and very calm. And I've noticed a change in you that I feel like you're a more confident leader and business owner. And one thing that we were talking about before we hit the record button on this podcast was that you're in another mastermind group where they have a saying, which is don't mow the lawn. And then that refers to, what's that?
Don't mow the grass.
Don't mow the grass, which refers to what you can delegate, you should, so that you can elevate your life as a visionary and an entrepreneur and continue to drive your business in the direction of, just success and however you want to take it. But working on the, the high level $1,000 activities, not the $10 activities. So talk a little bit about that insight. Have you been able to take don't mow the grass and apply it to different parts of your life, or are you just getting started with that, or tell me more?
Well, so don't mow the grass. Yes. For me, leadership is about trust. And I have to have good people. And so in Colorado, because of the admin team I have there, I actually trust them. Mm-hmm. And know that they are doing their best every day. And pre-COVID, we couldn't find teachers for love or money. I mean, we can't find them now either because of COVID, but it's different, mm-hmm. right? It's given me more permission. How's that? It's given me more permission to give it away. The trust that I have. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, then we move that person. One of the phrases that I've taken to heart and what you say is you want to make sure you get rid of the D and F people. So, and I've been working on that. And if someone comes in and it's not the right fit, then that's not bad. It's just not the right fit.
Right.
So it's given me more permission to hire people to mow the grass. And make sure that I'm looking, and it might not be that it's their skill set. It just might be that they have the heart to want to mow the grass that way, as opposed to a different way.
Right.
So yes, again, COVID has caused that. It's because I was so busy, I couldn't mow the grass a lot of times. And then I noticed that I'd really kind of suppressed my Colorado admin team from being able to do as much as they could. Mm. And so I just kept giving it away and then encouraging them to give it away. I don't want them mowing the grass either if it's something that that somebody else could do.
Right.
So, and then in Kansas, again, I've been forced to rely on my teachers as a team in a way that I kept trying to do before. I think COVID has changed things culturally in our country. I think that people are realizing more that I think that we got on this really fast train way up high in the air, and we forgot what it was to be connected to our heart. That we were so busy being busy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think came out of this pandemic is it dropped everybody, like literally, like we free fell into our hearts. And some people are coping okay with that and some people are not. And so our job is to help find resources for those that might not be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the most one of the most important things I think any leader can do is make sure that you honor the skills of the people that work with you and for you by giving them tools and activities to do the things that they could do, can do, and want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually quite profound and awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's just wonderful. Our final question is, how do you define a childcare rock star?
You know, I'm really glad you asked me that question because, again, I'm back to what we've all been embedded inside of Child Care Success Academy for the last 3 years that I've been there. And it surrounds the core values. What defines a child care rock star is going to be different, I think, based on the environment they're working in, the community that environment is in, and the part of the country that community is in. Because we're a multicultural country. So whatever is happening on the East Coast isn't going to be culturally compatible in the Midwest. And maybe that's going to change with COVID, I don't know. And I have a firsthand experience with that. When we sold Seven Oaks, we sold it to a company that was based in a different part of the US. And I'm not going to say which part. And we didn't really understand the importance of culture inside of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And that, while while logos changed over, nobody thought about the culture of what was the culture like in the individual school and in the collection of schools. And Colorado is very Birkenstocks and granola, right?
Yes.
And very slow pace. At least it was in 2004 when we sold them all. And the culture that company was based in was not that. Very high, very fast, high speed, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that works for them in that area of the country because everybody does it. But when they came into our center in Colorado, it turned everything upside down. And we had 11 schools of rock stars. We had an amazing 200 teachers, amazing team of men and women that was created by these three men, and I got to participate in one of the schools to help make that creation happen. And a couple of schools, and it all crashed and burned.
Right. Yeah,
So
I've seen that happen many times, and it's just heartbreaking that people they come in and then they don't realize that culture is the thing that has to be nurtured and developed and, all of those things, and so otherwise you're just like taking a plant and you're just pulling it out by its roots and throwing it over there. And then everything is just dirt.
Right. And people feel so dishonored.
Yeah.
So I think in our industry, And then I'll finish with this. When I was looking at the qualities of a rock star, COVID has taught us there needs to be two core ones. One is flexibility. Because this COVID, it's non-precedented. Nobody's ever been in this experience before. Nobody. Not coaches, not teachers, not children. So, and those that, no matter how hard it was, those that were at least could embrace the fact that there's some change going on, they were a little bit more able to function. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying none of us were 100% able to function because we were inside of something that we've never done before. So flexibility is a big one, I think. And then compassion. To be able to sit over here and realize that no matter who you're sitting across from, you're not walking in their shoes. You might have some similar experiences. Like someone like me, I have a lifetime of amazing experiences that allows me to relate to my families personally, connectively. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm still not in their shoes.
Right.
All I can say is I get you. And wow, how must that feel? Mm-hmm. So I think the most important thing is for a rock star, especially someone coming in, is to really understand you got to be flexible because it's changing rapidly.
Yeah.
And our industry is changing rapidly. And this pandemic has taken our industry to a whole nother level because it's made people realize how important what we do is in a way that it's never been before. And from a long-term perspective, looking out, we're going to get the opportunity to set some new ground rules and to create some new pillars to base everything on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So thank you for that very insightful answer. I love that. And I want to thank you for being with me today, Pamela. My guest today has been Pamela Piekarski from Exploring Minds Academy. How can people find out more about you and your school if they would like to get in touch?
Okay. That is due to be launched really soon by this great website development company called Grow Your Center.
Oh.
So you can go there. We do have a Facebook page. I will admit I've been lax and not been on it. I kept up with it kind of early COVID and, we're getting lots of hits, but I haven't updated anything. But again, you can, message us or do it there. And then, we have all the information. I think, do I give things out like phone numbers? I have an email.
No, just, I think exploringmindsacademy.com, right?
There you go. Yep. exploringmindsacademy.com.
And that will be going live. If it's not live already, it'll be live shortly.
It'll be live shortly. It's not live already. They were redoing the Kansas page because it's so different than the Colorado page.
All right. Well, I can't wait for it to be out in the world because I helped write the copy and it is an amazing website. And I had such a good time with it because I'm familiar with your program and I've been working with you and coaching. And so, I can't wait. I love when the websites launch that's our sister company. And you guys have probably listened to podcast episodes with Bruce Spur, and he's my business partner on the digital agency side. So feel very blessed to have helped you finally solve your website dilemma, Pamela, after all this time.
Oh my goodness. It's been in the making.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for having me. It's been, again, it's a true pleasure and a real honor. And I can't appreciate you enough for giving me the opportunity to see myself outside of myself so I could grow and become more than I know I can be.
Well, thank you for saying that. That means the world to me. And thank you so much for being here today. And thanks, guys, for listening and tuning in to another Childcare Rockstar Radio. We appreciate everybody out there doing the hard work in early care and education. And we will talk to y'all next time. Thanks, Pamela.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.